Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman. Yes, you're going to see me 6 times today. I got 6 interviews, and I just want to thank my own coffee company, Vertical Momentum Coffee, for keeping me energized all day long. And I want to thank the podcast Blueprint for actually sponsoring the show. But our main show is actually sponsored by my brother Anthony. Got an amazing company. We're going to be talking about games, comic books, video games, action figures. We're going to be talking about all this stuff, but we're also going to tell you 3 things you can do today to start winning in the second half of life. So, guys, make sure you stay till the end. I'm actually going to offer you something. If you spend $30 with me, you're going to get $997 in bonuses. So if you stay to the end, I'm going to give you that information. So my brother is an amazing man, an American hero in my eyes. Not only is he changed the game of the military, he's changing the game of games. So Anthony, my brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be on, Rich. You're very generous with your introduction.
And I love it when I'm a Jersey boy, you're a Jersey boy, and I love it, when the Jersey boy does good. Even though you're a Seton Hall Pirate, I still love you. My son was actually looking at going to Seton Hall, but he chose East Stroudsburg University.
Okay.
The Pirates are an amazing school, and I loved growing up listening to WSOU, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, if you love Seton Hall, this is going to be an amazing episode. So, my brother, first of all, like I said, you are military man through and through.
Yes.
You bleed red, white, and blue. You're a patriot, just like I am. So, I want to say thank you for your service, first of all, because I know I got chewed out by many sergeant majors for walking on the lawns. So I'm glad I'm not on the other end getting chewed out by this command sergeant major. So I just want to say, brother, thank you for your service.
I appreciate that. It was my honor and privilege to do it, and thank you for yours.
I love it. All right, so first question right off the get, because I know you're an analytical kind of dude. What is your definition of resiliency?
All right. Resiliency is the ability to employ coping skills, positive coping skills, in order to overcome adversity and move forward in a positive way.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit because we're both Jersey boys, and if anything, we know how to overcome is adversity in Jersey, because people from Jersey, we get a bad rap from the Jersey Shore, but we're hardworking. We're hardworking. We're grinders. We push through a lot. So knowing you and knowing your story, your life hasn't always been sunshine, rainbows, Skittles. So talk to us about where you come from, where'd you grow up, and what kind of things you had to go through as a child, and then a little bit about your military career.
All right. Well, I grew up in South Philadelphia. I didn't have a very affectionate household.
Before you even start, let me ask a question. Are you a Phillies fan?
Yes. Matter of fact.
All right, guys, we got to go. It's been a great show.
I take it you're either a Mets or a Yankees fan.
Definitely Yankees fan. My wife is a Mets fan, but I do like the Phillies because they always had a grinded mentality. So I love the Phillies, the whole story, because sometimes they didn't have the biggest payroll, but they always had the grinders.
They, in fact, were my first employer when I was 12 years old. I sold programs and yearbooks and scorecard lineups at the games in the summers for 10 cents on the dollar commission.
So that was your first foray into entrepreneurship?
I made enough to buy like some junk food. And, as I got, when I was 13, enough to stand outside the liquor store for someone to buy me a quart of beer.
Okay.
Miller High Life to champagne and beers.
Now, me and my wife were actually laughing about this is Philly, they're even tougher on their sports teams than in Jersey, because I remember, I think it was the Cowboys and the Eagles around Christmas time. They were actually pelting Santa with snowballs. So
Yes.
tough crowd in Philly.
Yeah, especially in the 80s and 90s when they were doing bad, when their record wasn't great or they were playing poorly, the fans turned on them and would boo them. But now I think that has changed. That generation has changed a little bit. Now they love their teams, however they're doing. And we have a
So
big rivalry going on right now, you and I.
yeah, yep,
Sixers and the Knicks.
yeah, and I'm a big basketball guy, and I think Embiid is a badass
Mhm.
beast. He is amazing. So I've always been a follower of the Sixers because I was a big AI guy.
Mhm.
Um, so hopefully they keep it going. And they're another team. They've never really had superstars, but they've always had grinders.
Right.
You know. So what was it like growing up in South Philly?
Well, I mean, I lived walking distance to the sports complex. Uh, I had no athletic ability whatsoever, and I didn't make friends too easily. So I have a couple of close friends, one of which I'm still in regular contact with today. He lives at the extreme other end of New Jersey, towards Delaware. I don't remember a whole lot of my childhood up until a certain point. I went to a college prep high school, was on student aid. That's when I realized I had no athletic prowess at that point in my life. I tried out for football, it didn't work out. I wrestled, but nobody got cut from the wrestling team. And tried out for crew, and that didn't work out so well. And when you get to driving age and you're still taking the bus and subway, and people are rolling in brand new vehicles, I was like, I'm in another world here. And
So
then,
I'm
yeah,
gathering you weren't the chick machine.
definitely not. No, I was a skateboarder. I was a metalhead. Um, go to concerts and dive off stage and crowd surf and slam dance and play Dungeons and Dragons. I do remember in grade school, I was a Boy Scout for a lot of years. Almost made Eagle Scout,
So
and I think
what did you go to Seton Hall for? What was your major?
I went there for a girl. Um, so it wasn't the best reason to pick a college. I majored in psychology with a secondary major in Russian language and history. And I've learned that after I graduated, that a degree in psychology, unless you're going to go to graduate school, with that degree and 4 quarters, I can make a call at a payphone.
Now you can't even find a payphone anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I know I'm
So,
old.
so me too. I'm 55 years old,
I
and
just turned 53 not too long
I
ago.
think that stuff it's so funny. So where did the whole military come in? Because for me, I was a metalhead growing up. I'm still a
Mhm.
metalhead. I was actually sending out copies of my book yesterday, and I was listening to Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, and Kiss as I'm writing out my book. So, what made you, being a metalhead, decide military? Yeah, yeah. Why not?
Uh, Desert Storm had already ended. It started and ended, and a lot of it was televised, so I watched a lot of it. And then May rolled around, beginning of May, and finals, and I realized I hadn't lined up a job for the summer, and I can't just go home and not work back to South Philly. So I was like, maybe I'll join the military. I have no idea why that crossed my mind or anything like that, but 2 days later, I was in a recruiter's office and I shipped out on the 22nd. 19th, I swore in. 22nd, I was on a plane.
And what year was this?
1991.
Okay, so you were just right after Desert Storm kicked, not Desert Storm. The 100-hour war kicked off.
Yeah.
So what was it like? Did you join? What branch did you join? And tell
I
us your recruiting story, because if you're taking stuff, psychology degree, and if you're such an analytical dude, I'm sure that you had a lot of jobs open to you. So why'd you join what you did, and
okay.
what branch?
All right. So I joined the Army and Army Reserve in particular. And in hindsight, I probably should have just went active duty and called it a day. But I don't know if that trajectory would bring me to where I am now, which I have no regrets on where I'm at now. But I took my ASVABs and I scored well. Matter of fact, I got over 120 points in every category, which the recruiter said it means I know a lot about a lot of things. And here's what's available to you. And it was accountant, medic, and cook. And I was like, what? All I wanted to be was an infantryman. All I wanted to be is 11 Bravo. And when I told them that, they're like, well, we're not hiring 11 Bravos right now. We're not taking infantrymen. And I didn't know he was just trying to fill a quota. And I could have waited. So I said, what's going to get me the closest to the front line? He said, combat medic. So I enlisted as a combat medic, went to basic training in Fort McClellan, Alabama a couple of days later. I was a fat body going in because I put on, and not a freshman 15, but a freshman like 30, 45 pounds. Got the crap beat out of me by the drill instructors, had to eat last, running road guard, everything to burn the fat off you in a not the healthiest way, but it worked. 9 weeks later, graduated, weighed 156 pounds, and went home, went back to school. Following year, I went back to Seton Hall. Following year, I went to advanced camp or MOS school at Fort McClellan, Alabama, Fort Sam Houston, Texas. And the school ran long, so I missed the start of the first semester, which was no big deal because my grades had suffered so bad I got suspended for a semester. And I was like, uh-oh, now I'm delayed. They let me back in January, and I picked up where I left off and eventually graduated.
Okay, so talk a bit, because a lot of people, they don't realize the shit that National Guard and reservemen and women go through, because you actually have one foot in the civilian world and you don't belong. You have one foot in the military and you don't feel like you belong. But you have to be excellent at both. And
yes.
Usually, if there's a wedding, a party, it's going to fall on your drill weekend.
It happens. It usually happens at that point once you get up in rank. When you're a junior soldier, I was a knucklehead for like the first half of my career, missing drills, got demoted a couple of times, got dumped into the IRR because I didn't show up to drill. And then at some point, I eventually figured it out. But I had a further divide because in the reserves, when I was in uniform, I'm, I guess, overeducated to be a private, but I'm an enlisted, so I didn't fit in with the officers either. So I was just kind of an island to myself.
Okay, now let's talk about that, because me, my story. I got thrown out for being a drug addict. Got back in, almost got thrown out again. 9/11 saved my life, and people know my story. But once I got allowed to stay back in, I realized the way I was doing things was not working. And that's when I realized, well, success leaves clues. So what are the higher ranked people doing differently than the E3s and E4s? And how about, even if I'm an EIOU1 at this point, what happens if I start doing what the higher ranks do, like showing up 2 hours early, staying 2 hours late, volunteering for everything, maxing out my PT, maxing out my correspondence courses, because that's what the winners are doing. So when you were coming up E1, E2, and then you finally pulled your head out of your ass, when you looked around, did you start thinking, all right, what do I have to do to get to where I want to be? And what steps did you take?
Well, it took in 2000, 95, a buddy of mine called me, the guy I grew up with. the one I've known since before the Atari 2600, said, I'm thinking of joining the Army. He goes, tell me about your experience. And I thought it was great. I loved my whole experience, even though I had already been dumped in the IRR. But, running around in the woods in a mechanized infantry unit every month was fun. I enjoyed it. So he joined, and then a handful of us drove out to Fort Knox to watch him graduate boot camp. And then just watching the companies divided up into their platoons, calling cadence and marching and everything dressed right, organized, neat, looking sharp, standing tall. By the time we got back, the next day I was on the phone with a recruiter trying to get out of the IRR to come back in. And the recruiter had met me up because by that time I was living in North Jersey full time. And he met me. I started volunteering at a ambulance crew. And he met me there, and we swore in on that spot. And I enlisted in an artillery unit as a medic for a battery. Still an E4 for the second or third time. And so the guy who joined the Army, Chris, called me over to his house and told me, gave me a beer, sat down, and he's like, hey, I want to talk to you about the Army. I was like, all right, yeah, what's up? He goes, you have fucked up your military career. He goes, you have been in since 91 and you haven't seen sergeant yet. He goes, and I've been in since 95. I'm about to pen 6. And this was 2000. So he was fast tracking. He goes, and he paused and took a drink and said, I don't know what to do or how to answer you on this. I said, because there's no question there. He goes, I want you to do something for me. Call this number. He gives me a phone number. Talk to this guy. Interview. If they will bring you in, do whatever you have to do to get back out of the guard, and get into the reserves. And tell them you want to know about the Kosovo mission. So June of 2000, I interviewed. August 2000, I had my first drill in the civil affairs world. I was back into the reserves. January, I was on a plane on my first deployment, January 2001.
Okay, so let's talk about that because on one drill, which was for me, which was August of 2001, I was a shitbag. My hair was long. My uniform looked like shit. And that was back when you iron your uniform, spit shine your boots. But that drill at September, my uniform was on point, spit shined, highly starched, haircut as I was regular as you can, regulated as you can get. I was like the top guy when I stood in formation. Just a month later. So what was the difference between the Anthony from when you first joined till that next formation when you joined and now you might be on your way to Kosovo?
I got into a unit. I guess the best way to put it, I got into a unit where everybody wanted to be there. Everybody showed up. Everybody showed up early. Everybody showed up in the proper gear. I used to have a first sergeant speech. And this is, kind of how I figured out that the Army Reserve isn't hard. Right place, right time, right uniform, right equipment. Pass your physical fitness test. Pass your height, weight. Do your PHA every year. Get your flu shot every year. Get your dental screening every year. If you can master those 9 things without being told to do it, nobody bothers you. If you're an E1, you'll make rank. You'll be asked to do things. You won't be treated like a pariah. It's people that really make the reserves hard.
But are you getting paid at this time?
For the reserves?
Yeah.
Yes.
So why would somebody, and this is just, for me, because I was National Guard and active duty. I was never reserve. So why would somebody choose the reserves over a National Guard?
A lot of times it's just MOS, because there's at least in the civil affairs world, it's only a reserve. centric thing, and active duty. There is no National Guard, which I'm surprised because it is a thing. And I think it's just a matter of maybe it was like me. I ended up in the Army because when I went to the Montclair recruiting office, it was a consolidated recruiting office. The Army recruiter was the only one there. So that's who I talked to.
But a lot of people don't realize that, especially people that I talk to. When I said, I was in regular Army, I was National Guard. They're like, oh yeah, it's that 2 weeks 2 weeks out of the year and 1 weekend a month. And I'm like, bro, you don't realize that sometimes the weekends come back to back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but if an Army, a regular Army unit gets deployed once, sometimes a National Guard or a reserve unit is going to get deployed 2 or 3 times more than a regular active duty component is. So what do you say when people say that, oh, it's that 2 weeks out of the month, weekend out of the month, 2 weeks out of the year?
I mean, I could show them my retirement point statement to see how much more time you actually give. It's, everybody's got the 80s mentality on the reserves and the National Guard. It was 1 weekend a month, when we're in the Cold War and primarily a peacetime environment versus a more volatile environment like after 2001. And if you're in a leadership role, it's even more of a thing.
Now, if I go stand on my front porch, I'm actually standing in the shadows of where the Twin Towers once stood. So that day totally changed my life. And most people from New Jersey, if you just mention 9/11 or September 11th, you feel that. But when you're in uniform and living in New Jersey, it's a different deal. So talk to us what it was like on that Tuesday morning.
I remember everything. That I was working in a laboratory. At the time, I was running out in Denville. I was running a high protein liquid chromatography machine, and we kept hearing about it on the radio. Everybody was worried that all of a sudden we're going to war and they're going to lose me for another year because I had been back from Kosovo for about 3 weeks by that time, and I just went right back to work. And the phone kept ringing. Anthony, you got to call on line 1. Anthony, you got to call on line 2. Between the Army, my rescue squad, who was going in to try and help out, I went into my boss and said, I got to go. And she said, what are you doing right now? And I walked her out and showed her what I was doing. I said, I'm sorry. She goes, come back when you're ready. And I went and volunteered, went into the city, worked there for a couple of days until they started releasing volunteers from out of state. We came back in, cleaned the rig, and went back to business as usual. And I went back to work. The reserves, when they were calling me, they just started putting people in order left and right. And the thought process was, well, you just got back from a peacekeeping mission in Kosovo. If you didn't unpack yet, don't, because we don't know what's going to happen. Not saying we're going anywhere, but not saying we're not. And I was like, great. So I'm still in the unknowns right now.
So did you deploy after that?
I didn't. We did not go to Afghanistan until 2010. I was on part of the first push into Iraq in 2003.
So, give us and we don't go into that war stories and stuff like that. We don't do that here because you can go to Jocko and talk about that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I just want to let people know that that when you like me, when I was 17 years old and I joined, your mindset changes when you have to sign your power of attorney and you have to write out who's going to get your life insurance.
Oh, yes.
So I don't care. We can say we're the bravest, but when anybody I've talked to anyway, that either went to Afghanistan, Iraq, Kosovo, you have the pucker factor, no matter where you're at, because you're like, I might not come home. So what was that thought process like in 2003? Because that's when the shit was really kicking off. Because there was nothing there. It was just a big dust bowl with a bunch of IEDs. So what was that like? What was the mindset going there?
Well, being in 2001, I had to do the will and the power of attorney and all that already. This was not something new, and I was older than the average. I was older than the average specialist because I didn't get promoted to sergeant until February 2003. And I was one of the only people to, when we were dealing with the JAG, I said, tell them I need a medical power of attorney as well. Because if I'm on life support and no brainwave or no brain function, pull that plug. No artificial feeding, no artificial ventilation. If I can't do it on my own, I can't just sit there and run up a medical bill that somebody's got to cover down on sooner or later.
So there was no DNR or anything like that.
It was just let me die.
Okay.
And everyone thought that was pretty grim. And like, it's a fact.
But it's a different mindset when you realize, even it's why I love my first responders. I love my EMTs. Every time they hop on a truck or get in a car, I might not make it home tonight. So that's why, guys, if you don't know, if you're anti-American, if you're anti-police officer, if you're anti-first responder, you might as well unfriend me right now, because my house, we bleed red, white, blue, green. And so I want to let you guys know that we are patriots in my home. And I stand for the flag and I kneel for Jesus Christ. And that's it. So that's my rant for today. So talk to us, because, what was you put in what, over 30 something years?
32.
What made you think of, all right, entrepreneurship?
Okay. So I did 14 months of Iraq. 9 months later, I was in Africa for a year. And then
Djibouti? You go to Djibouti?
I did go to Djibouti, and back when it was Tent City.
Yep.
Ran missions all over the continent. Came back from there, got put on orders for 2 years at my unit, at the same unit I've been deploying with. So I tendered resignation from the company in Denville, because with the op tempo we were keeping, I was never going to be a research lead, never have the opportunity to have my name on a patent or anything like that. All that wishful thinking stuff. So bought a house in South Jersey, right by the base, commuted there for 2 years, ended up getting a job as a civilian once the orders ran out, with the 99th Readiness Division, as a Department of Army civilian. Not too long after I started there, I went to Afghanistan, and I started figuring one of my friends, he's a retired colonel, was telling me that, on a long enough timeline, nobody survives. He goes, why are you purposely trying to potentially truncate your timeline? I was like, I'm not. They're just saying, we need you to go. So I go. After Afghanistan, I came back, and Afghanistan was hard, but I went back to Djibouti again in 2014. And here's where the entrepreneurship came in. So the year I was back from Afghanistan, 2011, I started selling stuff on eBay, basically clearing out the shed, creating room in the house. And, just started flipping things, and I was having fun with it. So then I started buying stuff on clearance, from the PX, from Walmart and all that, toys primarily, and then flipping them again, and some other things, filters for water filters and that kind of thing, just, for shits and giggles. And the money was coming in. And then 2013, we had a notice, hey, you're going to deploy again to Africa. And it is a short notice, so we had to be ready to go in 90 days or less. So we put together the team, brought everybody in. I shut down what I was doing. And when I was in Africa, I was deployed as a first sergeant. So, you don't get to have fun. You just sit around and wait to put out a fire. So it gave me a lot of time to think. And I was getting close to 50 at that point. Is, oh, what am I going to do after the Army? Sooner or later, the Army is going to say, you can't stay and play anymore. And you have to go back to the house. Well, what do I want to do? It's like, yeah, I have my day job, but sooner or later, I'm going to get bored of that too. And I thought maybe reselling would be a option. So I started researching. I had my personal computer with me. So I started researching, found community upon community of resellers on YouTube, on Facebook, on everywhere else. Oh, I didn't get a Facebook account till I was in Africa. It was one of the things the Army had changed. The Army Reserve changed their mindset. If you're putting somebody out in the reserves, if you can't find them on social, if you didn't look on social media, then you didn't do all your due diligence. So I was given an order to get a Facebook account. And I thought that was a little silly, but okay. Now I live and die by social media because of the business. And I just kept throwing in my mind, wargaming a business plan, throwing stuff against the wall, see what stuck. And so I started with government liquidation and toys. Don't ask me why I came to that, but it's where I ended up.
All right, so let's talk about that, because the reason this is perfect timing is the first half talking about your past, and now we're talking about business, because I'm a business guy. That's what I love talking about. But like my friend Sergeant Nick from one of our groups, Sergeant Nick talks about is when you get out of the military doesn't give a shit about you. Your phone stops ringing. A lot of us, once we get out, there's no retirement coming in. So pretty much we don't have a mission anymore. So we're pretty much alone on an island. And a lot of times we're sometimes looking at the bottom of a bottle or looking at the barrel of a gun. Because, like for me, I did 23 years trying to be, my second time, trying to be the ultimate soldier, trying to be Sergeant Kaufman. Well, what happens when I have to hang up that uniform for the final time? And I'm no longer that thing. I'm no longer Sergeant Kaufman. I'm private friggin' civilian now. And it doesn't matter what I did in the military. I'm starting over again. So talk to us about that, because I'm sure even if you haven't gone through a lot of it, you have gone through some, but I'm sure you've talked and you've had plenty of friends and plenty of people that you've talked to. What is it really like when people get out of the military and realizing I got nothing? I literally have nothing, because there's nobody out there looking for tank commanders at this moment.
Right. Yeah.
So I have to adapt, and I have to reimagine my life. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. And, I'm not even a year into retirement. And fortunately enough, I still have my civilian job where I work for the Army as a civilian. So I'm still around the uniform. I'm just not in front of formation, or in a formation for that matter. I can let my hair grow and have a beard if I wanted to, but that's really not my personality. But it was about 2 months after 2 months after I retired that the phone stopped ringing, because at my peak I was a brigade command sergeant major of a multifunctional brigade. So you have 5 different types of units, 5 different medals, 5 different sets of headaches. And still, people still not understanding it doesn't take much to be successful in the Army Reserve. If you can't do the minimum basic soldier task, then maybe this isn't the place for you. But with retention being a thing, I just can't throw out whoever I wanted. But the first sergeants, they kept in touch with me for a little bit. But it's, when I was dealing with soldiers going through the med board, through my civilian job, I would explain to them, look, what's left of you when you step out of uniform is whatever the Army chewed up and spit out and is done with. And they are going to plug and play someone else right in your position. There's no streamer parades or anything like that. If you keep trying to hang on, you're going to either get put out in a way you don't want to be put out, or you're going to cause harm to your body. You're not going to be able to walk away from.
Okay, so let's talk about, because being an employee is one mindset, and being a business owner is a
Yes.
total different mindset. And for me, it's something that I had to realize. Okay, if I have an employee mindset, I'm always going to be an employee. So I have to flip the script. But a lot of times when I tell everybody, if you spent a week in the military, we all know how to write out an SOP. We all know how to write a 9-line. But when we go to start a business, because everybody wants to get out of the military, start a t-shirt company, a hat company, liquor, or coffee. I've done every one except liquor. But a lot of us don't have a written plan or an SOP. And like my friend Stephen Eugene Kuhn told me, if you don't have a plan, you don't have a business, you have a hobby.
I heard that podcast.
Yep. And
that
love
very statement.
So talk to us about the mindset of, again, because you have 1 foot in the employee mindset, and then you got 1 foot in the business mindset. So talk about flipping the script on the mindset of a business owner.
I have been fortunate enough to have to be I had to reinvent myself a lot of different times throughout my adult career. Working retail at a mall, to being an independent salesman, to being an inside salesman, to being an outside salesman, to working in a laboratory, then working for the Army as a civilian, being in a management position, and now the job I'm in now, where I deal with the medical readiness of 36,000 people, or spread out over 13 states, which really just means I stare at a computer a lot and look at numbers. It's not as sexy as it sounds. But in the jobs I've had, particularly the outside sales jobs and the lab and the Army, I have a lot of freedom of movement and flexibility, particularly with the Army. So it is, although I have to come and go and the hours dictated, my workload is not dictated to me. If I am not successful, my numbers will see it. If I am successful, the numbers will do it. So the onus is on me, because in 2 years, I'm going to have a new supervisor, because the old one's going to PCS or retire. And they're going to come in from a line unit or somewhere, not knowing a clue of how this works.
All right,
so
Anthony.
I run a section.
So, and let me just ask a question, because this is something that I'm currently, because guys, no matter how successful we are, whether we're running $1 million company, whether we're top podcast, whatever, we all struggle with something. And if you guys know me, I'm 100% of the time. For me, my thing I'm struggling with now is time management, because I have so much going on. I have the podcast, I have the new book, I'm teaching, I'm speaking. So talk about, because I hear a lot of people say, well, I can't afford to start a business. I don't have the time. And like Gary Vaynerchuk, me and him had lunch together. And something that he said to me, he said, your 9 to 5 pays your bills. Your 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. build your legacy. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have time to start a business. But you'll see him at the water cooler like, man, I just binge watched Suits, like 18 episodes yesterday. But I'm like, I tell everybody, The Rock has 1,440 minutes a day. Richard Kaufman has the same 1,440 minutes. It's what we do with those 1,440 minutes that's going to dictate where you're going to be 5 years from now. So talk about the time management of having a 9 to 5, but also running a business.
All right. Well, it's funny you mentioned Gary Vee, because one of his quotes was regarding college, and college is, and this is not, I'm paraphrasing here. A college degree is the ability to, is proof that you know how to manage your time. Particularly if you're living away from home. You have to have a job sometimes. You have to attend classes. Nobody's there to force you to attend class. You have to know when your tests are, when your papers are. You are basically on your own trying to manage your own time. And if you can't do that, you're not successful. You won't be successful in college. Sometimes I'm sure there's exceptions to the rules, exceptions to everything. I was a shitty student, but I learned how to manage my time. Unfortunately, I didn't learn it in college. Otherwise, I would have graduated with a better degree and maybe been on a different glide path. But I have to know where my high water marks are with my job, with the business. So I'm up at 5:30 every day. I pull orders that came in the night before to pack and get ready for shipping. Let my dog out, get my kid up, get breakfast ready, pack my lunch, go to work. I work close to the base. I work 12 miles away. So I come home from lunch, let my dog out, pull orders again that may have come in the morning, send out the shipping, go back to work, come back and take my kid to Taekwondo. And for the hour to 2 hours that we are there, I bring my computer, I tap into their Wi-Fi, and I work.
And that's funny that because the first time we ever talked,
I was outside the dojo.
You were outside the dojo, and we just sat and bullshitted for like an hour while your son was doing his martial arts. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, and then sometimes I got to pull the computer up from the basement and work after dinner. Sometimes I don't. When orders come in, if I don't have the time to pack them right away, I get them pulled and staged and ready to go. And I telework 2 days a week, today's and Wednesdays and Fridays. So I'm up and logged in even earlier. So in the hours, the non-working hours where I'm focusing on the business, I'm doing the SEO on the website. I'm tweaking it, adding new products, taking down things that are out of stock, reordering, dealing with vendors. I do that at my lunch hour, do that after the business day until it's time to either take my kid to karate or start prepping for dinner or something along those lines.
All right. So, but now if you guys watching this, Anthony and his company are sponsors of my show, and we're trying to get his business out everywhere. But you're at a point where I was at when I first started, that I realized I can't do it all myself. Mm-hmm. I can't do the interviews. I can't do the SEO. I don't know what I don't know. And a lot of people, they try to wear all the hats instead of, like Gary Vee said, always taught me that triple down on what you're good at. Learn not what you're not good at, but hire somebody that's great at what you're not good at, because then you can actually have a team working. Because, if you have a team, you can go long and far. If you're by yourself, it's going to be a lonely ride, and you're going to get burnt out because you can't do everything by yourself. So talk about that is, if there's actually a point you probably sat there and looked like, I can't do all this by myself. So talk about building a team.
All right. I'm still a solopreneur, but I've learned to let go of some things I'm not good at. I tried my own email marketing, my own advertising and all that. And it's terrible. It flopped. Basically flushing money. So I realized I had to get somebody who knows what they're doing. If I'm going to scale the business, not grow, scale. I'm not ready to grow yet, or at least I don't think I am. But I differentiate between growing your business and scaling your business. Growing means getting a facility and hiring other employees, like payroll headaches and all the other things. Scale is more products, more reach, that kind of thing. And I could be wrong. That's just a personal way how I look at it. So I had tried during COVID a couple of marketing firms. I started with the vet-owned community first, and I got shitty results. I'm not going to badmouth them. I'm not going to name drop because I don't want to damage their potential reps that they may have, and they may have picked up their game. But it's people that they take these mastermind courses or something like that, and all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to start a marketing company. And, that's, you do a trial by fire, but it wasn't successful. So I took it back. I'm like, okay, I will keep trying on my own. And it wasn't working. So eventually the website got to be the point where I can't keep up with it. So I contracted out with a company to build me a new one. They talked me into moving from WordPress to BigCommerce. In retrospect, I should have stayed with WordPress. I think it gives me more flexibility to what I do. But BigCommerce is fine. It works. I'll probably end up going back to WordPress down the line. And so just kept talking to marketing companies. I get emails daily from the spammers saying,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, marketing company, they have a website, they look good, they got positive reviews. It could all be fluff, could all be bullshit. What's 15, 20 minutes of my time to meet with them? So I set it up, and every one of them, I have a somewhat, it's not a trick question, but it's, what are you guaranteeing? And they're like, well, we can't really guarantee anything because the results vary from company to company. You have to take time and how much you're going to put on ad spend. And I'm like, yep, never mind. Thank you for your time. And then I've had some companies who said, yeah, no, you're not a right fit for us because the profit margins aren't there, or my company is not developed to where it is. And I respected that more than people just saying, well, it's going to cost this much and you need this much in ad spend. But I can't guarantee any results, or I can't tell you what we guarantee. The company I'm working with now, their email was, we were looking to add a couple clients in the toy space. We'd like to learn more about your business. Would you care? Would you give us a little bit of time? I was like, that's a different pitch. Why not? So I asked them, what are you guaranteeing? And they said, what we guarantee is this many ads. They didn't guarantee numbers or anything like that, but they guaranteed the work they were going to do for me for that time frame. And that was the right answer in my mind. I said, let's onboard. Let's set up a time to do the onboard. You're hired. And so we're 45 days in.
All right, but let's talk about, because I had dinner, or actually had dinner and played cards with a billionaire.
Mm-hmm.
He's the largest timeshare owner in the state of Florida.
Okay.
And I asked him, I said, well, what's the difference between the poor person and the rich person? And he said, it's their vocabulary. It's the words they use. Like business owners, we talk about appreciation. We talk about depreciation. We talk about ROI. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know what ROI means, guys, it's return on your investment. If I have somebody that comes to me and says, well, I want to help you grow. Well, what are you guaranteeing me? Just like Anthony's saying, show me the numbers. So when I put it to my board, this is what I'm getting. They're guaranteeing me. Mm-hmm. If they don't perform, we don't pay. Like a lot of people, somebody just asked me, well, why would I hire you to be my podcast coach? I just told them, Google me. We're on the first 6 pages of Google. So, and it's all free. I'm not paying for any of it. So if you want to know what I do, Google me and Google the people that I work with. And so, but people know if you work with me, I'm going to take my $70,000 that I've spent so far in courses and books, my 11,000 hours, and I'm going to teach you how I did it. But you're going to have an ROI because I've taken everything and condensed it into 8 weeks. But a lot of people, like you said, they'll be like, oh, we love to work with you. But when you say, well, what are you guys guaranteeing? Well, we can't guarantee anything. And that's like, but you want me to guarantee that I'm going to cut a check to you. What if I just said, I might give you $100, or I might not. I might give you $53. And you're probably like, that's not how this works. And you're like, well, if you can't give me an ROI, then I can't hire you, right?
Yes. And I think, most of these companies I had talked to, when I said, "What are you guaranteeing?" They went right to the mindset of, "Oh, we can't guarantee he's going to get more sales or he's going to get this much increase in business." That was their focus, not like, "We are going to do A, B, and C for you. We can guarantee that. And when we hit these points, we'll revisit, see if we need to do more ad spend, more this, more that, more the other thing." So I'm working with a marketing company in Utah just for that fact, because they were very candid and they answered that question a proper way, a way that made sense to me.
Okay, now you're also an analytical dude, and
Mm-hmm.
I sold timeshares for 10 years, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that when I had an analytical guy on my table, we were going to go through the whole minutia. And if it made sense, they would buy.
Right.
But I'm sure that because I tried eBay,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was doing great until every time I listed something, the prices and then the shipping, and I was like, I was losing more money than I was making because I wasn't that analytical guy, and I never knew what do you mean by margin. So talk to us about because even like Bruce Lee once said, I'm not afraid of the guy that can throw 10,000 kicks. I'm afraid of the one guy that's thrown one kick 10,000 times. So I'm sure that you had to really look and take a deep dive into what you were selling to try to figure out the margins. So talk about how important it is, because a lot of people think, I'm going to sell T-shirts. Well, so does Under Armour, so does Black Rifle. All these people sell the same stuff. How are you going to compete? You can't compete
Mm-hmm.
with your margins. You have to do something different. So talk about that mindset of, okay, I'm going to sell games, but I need to know what they're worth. I need to know what I can sell them for, and I got to pay tax.
Right. All right. I'll use what they call reaction figures, retro action figures. They are from a company called Super 7. They are my biggest seller of everything I have, because there's such a variety of them. They're like Funko Pops, but much cooler. So I know ahead of time I'm going to pay X amount of dollars per unit. And because it's shipping from California, it's going to be about 83 cents more per figure because it's coming from California. Then you have to factor in the analytical side of me. Okay, each one gets 2 feet of bubble wrap, this much dunnage, void fill, a same size box for 1 to 4 figures of 200 weight, 10 by 7 by 4 box, which costs this much. So you roll all that in. That's your cost for your figure, not including any advertising dollars you may put into it or anything along those lines. Then you have to figure out, how much do I want to make on this figure? What's the competition selling it for? Can I compete? Do I have enough regular customers who would want this where I don't have to worry about my competition? So you figure out your margin and your price point. So if it is near what I like with a plus or minus 2% variance, I buy it. And the one thing I have to try not to do is get analysis by paralysis by analysis, where you start thinking so much into it that you kind of lose your train of thought, or you're too late. Because if you don't commit and get them up for sale first or second or third, you're not going to have any sales, because everyone's going to have the same product up. And there are people out there who will race to the bottom quickly, just start cutting the prices to the point just to move it. Even maybe use them as a loss leader. I don't use those as loss leaders because sometimes it's just the right thing. The action figure, the Thin Lizzy guy, Phil Lynott, his action figure came out. It arrived on Saturday. I was sold out by Monday. So sometimes it's just the right thing. I didn't even have a chance for it to get ranked in Google once I got the SEO right, because it was just.
And by the way, I'm a big Phil Lynott guy. I think that their guitar sound was amazing. Mm-hmm. I even reposted it on all my social media. So hopefully you got some sales out of that. But okay, so let's talk about price, because
Okay.
if somebody hires me to coach them,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be 4 figures, no doubt about it. But I've already put in the 70 grand. I've already put in 11,000 hours. So where I'm condensing it into 8 weeks for 4 figures, where you're starting making money off the get. But a lot of people think, all right, well, I'm going to be the cheapest. And like Russell Brunson said when we talked, he said, there's no winning at the race to the bottom. Sometimes it's better to be the most expensive, because some people, like when I was with GNC, we would have sales where I would put like 5 of the most expensive pre-workouts I had, a
Mm-hmm.
middle one, and then 1,000 of a cheap pre-workout. Those 5 would be gone before I even sold the other ones, because somebody's thinking, well, this one's $100, that one's 12. There's something got to be right about that product. But you're saying that if I order from your company, I'm sure, knowing you, the kind of guy you are, you're going to throw in something different. You're going to show your customer service is going to be above and beyond what the average person is. Like when I go to we have a place in town, and it's a comic book store. Every time I go, my daughter buys something, they stuff the bag with stuff, extra stuff. And I'm taking pictures in front of the store every time to promote them, because I know they're going to treat my daughter like she's gold, and she's the only customer. So I'm sure you do that. So, talk about, even if you're charging the average price or maybe a little bit more, I'm sure you're providing more value than the average Joe, right?
Yes. I'll give you an example, because this happened not more than 2 weeks ago. I had 2 separate sales, 2 completely different people. The same product, 2 of the same game, called Dixit. So one was a New York address, or a New York IP address, and it's being sent to Delaware. And I know the address in Delaware. It's a freight forwarding company. I'm like, okay, I've dealt with these people before. Let me just reach out and make sure, because I had one experience where I got a bunch of chargebacks. This was last year, and was in a hole quite a bit. Realized, once I started doing my due diligence after the fact, it was a freight forwarding company in Oregon, one in North Jersey, with an IP address out of the Philippines. So I end up dealing with a stolen card, apparently, either a stolen card or somebody just making a chargeback just so they can get free shit. So I emailed the first number. Then the second order, I emailed the first person, like, hey, I just want to make sure that you're dealing with a freight forwarding company. My company policy is I am responsible to get it from headquarters to the freight forwarding company. If there's an issue with the product on the back end of it, you have to deal with the freight forwarding company on it. And I got an email back with Hebrew headers on it, because I had to cut and paste the lettering to see what language it was in. So it was somebody sending it to Israel. I'm like, all right, I got it. My thoughts were probably not the best time to be mailing stuff to Israel, but so be it. The other one came in a couple hours later, going to 2 games from an IP address in South Carolina, going to Colorado. Oh, that one had a phone number attached to it. So I called the number, left a message. She gave me a call back. And because when I first ran the IP address, it looked like it was out of China. I'm like, all right, before I package up and send this crap, let me resolve this. And I logged in and did the IP search again, and it was South Carolina. So everything matched up. I spoke to her at length, and she goes, I'm actually surprised you called. I'm like, well, your number and everything is here, and you're sending it there. She goes, yes, we own a business. I work remotely. I'm sending it to the headquarters for somebody. I'm like, okay, I could buy that. I got it. The address, I did a phone number lookup. Phone number matched the name it was being sent to. Everything, all the numbers lined up. Will I still get screwed? Who knows? I'll find out in a couple of weeks. But my concern was I was talking to a deep fake voice, an AI voice. So I said the wrong game, and she corrected me, and then went on about that she's very happy I called and that I showed concern. I'm like, well, look, I'm a one-person operation. I've gone through this a couple of times before, and I just want to make sure that your credit card is not being used by the wrong person.
Okay, so now
I don't know if that made sense at all. I tend to.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So tell us exactly what you do, because I want people, because as we talk, before you even became a sponsor of the show, I wanted to find out where your head was at. And we were talking about how it's time for sometimes to put the phone down, to bring the family back, to playing board games, playing Monopoly, playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I think that's part of what makes you a little bit different, because you want people to actually start playing again. And I think as adults, we stop playing. It's all work and no play. So talk about your mission statement.
Okay. My mission statement is to get everybody to put down their electronic devices, the phone, the computer, even though we live and die by them all, and stop gaming and start board gaming, because you can connect with people a lot better on a board game in person than you can through online gameplay. And there are nonprofits out there, one of which is out in Red Lion, Pennsylvania. I don't have permission to use their name. I didn't ask, so I won't say who they are, but they are using board gaming as a therapy for autistic children. And some of the Wounded Warrior Army units are using board gaming as a therapy for behavioral health disorders, treatment of PTSD. It's not a solution. It is not a treatment, but it is an augment to help offset anxiety, depression, the alienation that comes with post-traumatic stress disorder.
All right, but let's talk about the board game itself.
Okay.
Because I've had the owners of Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Robert Kiyosaki,
and I love their board game. I play it once a week, and I get out of the rat race within 30, 45 minutes. But it taught me to what business actually is, just like the original Monopoly. Buy a red house, buy a greenhouse, you pay your taxes. It teaches you life skills. Board games can actually teach you life skills, right?
Yes. The ones that I sell I try to keep in stock a lot of them are cooperative games where you're working with somebody, but not as a team, because you're trying to take the Shining board game, for example, based on the book and the movie. It's minimum 3 people to play. One person's the bad guy. The other people are the good guys. And unless you're playing with a possessed character, that's a whole other thing. So you have to outmaneuver to keep yourself in the game, the opposition. So sometimes you have to team up with people. You learn cooperative reasoning in a board game setting, in a safe setting where nobody's life is on the line. And if it doesn't go wrong, the world still turns.
But
everybody gets to have a laugh.
That's why I think Dungeons and Dragons, it survived all these years, and you still have people. Hey guys, it's Saturday night. Let's break out the board. Who's going to be who's going to be the dungeon master this week?
Yeah.
So I think
I played that quite a bit growing up.
So but it makes you think outside the box. It makes you think in teamwork, but it also makes you think as an individual. So pretty much you're taking the whole thing and then you're trying to figure everything out, kind of like a war. You try to figure out, your part and then everybody else's part.
Right. And much like in chess, you have to anticipate 3, 4, 5 moves ahead compared to where your opposition or your opponents, their moves may be, but you're doing it with much more people, unless
And
you're playing a one-on-one game.
Guys, if you don't know who Patrick Bet-David is, you need to check out his new book, talking about thinking 5 moves ahead, just like in chess. So, guys, make sure you check out Patrick Bet-David's new book. I don't get anything off of it, but I know I learned. I'm always thinking, well, what's going to happen 5, 6 moves down, instead of just worried about making the one thing. And I think it all goes back to playing chess. Just sitting there, even when the computers first came out, they had solitaire and they had chess. And I would spend hours just playing chess. And now I can think, okay, let me think 4 or 5 moves ahead. I think that's gaming can give you that in a safe environment, instead of doing it. And then you could do it in the real world, right?
Yes. I think it transitions over nicely. Especially if you're, you can use the board gaming to help recognize when your symptoms of anxiety are going to kick in, and you learn a positive coping skill to help you interact with others and continue on with the game, which may help you down the line. None of this is guaranteed. Everything is theory, but there's some pretty solid evidence showing that board gaming helps with post-traumatic stress disorder, and not just the veteran community, because as combat vets, we don't own the copyright to PTSD. You can get into a car accident and have post-traumatic stress disorder. You can be assaulted. Just you have a bad childhood experience, and you can still suffer.
But
and
you don't just do board games. I mean, you do comics. You're branching out into other things. And I think that's great, because a lot of people think, well, I just do this. Like when I first started, I was just a podcast host. Now I'm a speaker, I'm author, I got a t-shirt company, I got a coffee company, books. But I think you have to, when you start thinking, like you were saying, you have to start thinking outside the box, because maybe somebody might want a comic and you're like, no, I don't do that. Well, he's not coming back to you. If you say, well, I don't do that, instead of saying, hey, I don't do that right now, but I know somebody. I'll get that for you. How do you want to pay for this credit card? Don't talk about that. All right. Some stuff I don't know, but if I can get an answer for you, you'll come back to me, instead of just saying, well, we don't do comics.
Yeah, well, comics I fell into it. I used to go out picking at the antique places, and then I bought a couple of comic books and flipped them, and bought some more and flipped them. And then I found a supplier who, I guess he must have owned a comic book store or bought one out. Now he's a little older now. He's trying to downsize it. So he puts them up on Facebook Marketplace. And if it's something I'm interested in, I will buy from him. So I bought out a few large lots. I bought out a couple of collections, and I ended up with 1,000 or so comic books in the basement now, boarded, bagged, and stored in climate controlled area until they sell. So almost every one is photographed and listed online somewhere.
So what's next coming up for your company, and what do you got going on in the near future?
I'm adding new products in monthly, sometimes weekly, it feels like. I'm going to branch into very, very slowly into prop replicas. I've had some success with them in the past, and I would like to revisit it. And maybe this fourth quarter, I may be setting up vendor tables at trade shows, not trade shows, at like toy conventions, and get a point of sale system and just sell in person. That's the near future. Midterm future, 5 years or so. I want to be producing my own figures, Japanese soft vinyl style, 3 3/4 inch action figures, that kind of thing. But I have to learn the 3D printer world and how to make molds and that kind of thing, and then hire an artist. So that's what I'm thinking. 5, 10 years down the line, I would like to be the retail side to shrink, or not shrink, but maintain and open up a wholesale side as a distributor. Because I keep thinking back to my last couple of months in Africa when I got the tax ID number and an idea. I had a distributor, even though I didn't have a website or anything like that, told them my story. And after getting dozens of no's, they said, sure, we'll sell to you. I want to be that guy to pay that forward. Maybe find another veteran who's trying to get into the retail space and give him a shot when he has nothing to say he's got an established business or even money in his pocket. Money in his pocket.
All right. So this is a teaching podcast. And usually the last questions I asked are, you've been in business now for a year. But you've been around business for a long time. So if Private Joe Snuffy, just getting out of the military, because my perfect avatar is a 45-year-old male, father of 3, veteran, brand new business owner. What would be your top 3 pieces of advice if somebody wanted to start a business in 2024?
Have a product or service that solves a problem. Have enough money to carry you 6 to 8 months if you're going full into it, so you can pay the bills and the rent and all that. And don't get discouraged.
I love it. So last question is, because I follow, me, I stalk you everywhere. I'm on your LinkedIn page. I'm on your Facebook page. I'm on your Instagram. I'm everywhere. So where do we go to find you? And what kind of specials are you doing? Anything special on your website or anything that we can possibly get into?
Well, my website is tacticstotoys.com. Tactics to Toys is the same name on one word on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, TikTok, even though I haven't done anything with TikTok yet. YouTube is Tactical Picker, even though there's only like 3 videos and like 5 followers. I can't think of anywhere else I'm in. And in hindsight, I should have launched a discount code or something for this podcast. I should have asked you about that earlier and gotten that but nothing to say that I can't gin one up real quick and
we could throw it. We could throw it in the liner notes, but something that just piqued my interest. A lot of people, like when I tell people, I have over 15,000 people visiting my page on Pinterest a month, and they're like, "But you're a podcaster. Why do you have a Pinterest page?" And I'm like, "Because I have 15,000 people showing up every month." And once you post something on Pinterest, it stays, it becomes evergreen. So because I know everybody's always on the other ones, but what was your thought about Pinterest?
Oh, I have an extensive Pinterest site. I love it. It's one of the larger search engines out there that goes by image. And that is one of the reasons I may end up going back to WordPress as opposed to staying with BigCommerce, because BigCommerce's XML file does not feed into Pinterest as well as it should. It's not updating, so everything I have to do in Pinterest is manual. Whereas with WordPress, it had an automatic feed, so anytime I added a new product, it would push it in. I had to pay for that service, that app, but so be it. It's worth it.
So if you're not on Pinterest, and because a lot of people don't realize, and I teach this in my new course, that if I put something on Facebook or Instagram, it's gone sometimes 24 hours, 48. But if I put something on YouTube or if I put something on Pinterest, it lives. It's called evergreen.
Yes.
And it lives, and you'll gain more traction by people saving it over time. So I have people that did a show, they're still making money 6 years from from that one show that they did because it still lives there,
Mhm.
evergreen. So I think that's a brilliant business plan. I mean, something that you added that 99% of the people, if you ask, they're on Pinterest. They're like, that's a women's site. That's a baking site. It's like, you don't even realize what you have.
Mhm.
And it's free,
Yes.
free. So, Anthony, brother, I just want to say, first of all, I want to say thank you for being my brother. Um, and I'm so grateful for you, and I can't wait for us to hang out. And
Yeah,
so, guys,
absolutely.
make sure pick up if you're going to go on vacation this year. I'm going on a cruise this year, and we're going on MSC cruises, and you're
Mhm.
not allowed to stream. You're not allowed to do this stuff. So if you're going on vacation, bring a game. Bring something else to do besides
Mhm.
playing on your phone. And definitely check out my brother's website because it's fire and I loved it. And guys, if you love Thin Lizzy like I do, if you can ever get your hand on that thing is
Uh,
awesome.
it's my sales rep asked me if I wanted more, and they have some left in the warehouse. I may take them up on it.
I love it. So, guys, this interview was actually brought by my coffee. If you love coffee, I got a brand new coffee, high energy, no crash. 100% of the proceeds go to help veterans struggling with PTSD and homelessness. And also, guys, like I said, if you buy my book for $30, you're going to get a $997 bonus. That means if you're a business owner, I'm going to have you come on my show. I'm going to promote your business to over 100,000 people and promote your business on 35 different social media platforms just for spending $30 on my new autographed book. So, guys, if you want to become podcasters, if you want to learn how to scale your business, spend the $30, get 1,000. What kind of ROI is that? That's stupid ROI. So, Anthony, brother, I just want to say I'm grateful for you. I can't wait to shoot down the shore, grab some pizza, maybe go get some strombolis, maybe get a Philly cheesesteak. So, brother, I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome, Rich. I appreciate you having me on.
I love it. And guys, remember, like Joel Osteen, everybody has a choice to decide. Today I decide. Today I decide to be a victim or a victor. And if you listen to this show, you are victors. You're no longer victims of your past. So thank you guys so much. And like Joel Osteen says, you have a choice today. Be a victim or be a victor. And guys, remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. Anthony, my brother, I love you. Have an amazing week, and I can't wait to chill.
You got it, Rich.
Be good.
You as well. We'll talk soon.